Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Evangelical Alliance Ireland. I'm James Reilly, and I'm speaking to you again today on the subject of knowing God's will. In the first message, we talked about the Word. What's written in Scripture guides us into God's will, and it's true for everyone. In this second message, I want to talk to you about the Spirit. The Spirit of God will guide you into God's will in a personal way that's relevant for you, for here, for now, for this situation where you are currently. When the Spirit communicates with you, it might be dramatic or it might not be dramatic. The Spirit can communicate in more dramatic ways, such as dreams and visions, and a voice or an angel. But the Spirit can also communicate in less dramatic ways, giving you a knowing, or speaking through your conscience, or just as you walk in sync with God as friends, that you just know His will, because you've become accustomed to His ways through the familiarity of walking with Him over time, and His Spirit just having ease within your life to direct you naturally in the things that please Him. But one thing to say about receiving guidance from the Spirit of God, often it goes against the grain of what you expect. There might be something that you've never done and God says, do it. There might be something that you've always done and God says, don't do it this time. Let me give you a couple of examples from Scripture, and then let me give you an example from my own life. When Peter was in Joppa, which we read about in Acts chapter 10, he had the vision of the sheet lowered down from heaven, and there were unclean animals in the sheet, and a voice came to him saying, "Arise, Peter, kill and eat." Now Peter had never eaten unclean animals, and so his immediate reaction was, "No, Lord," which of course are two words that don't belong in the same sentence. But he said, "No, Lord, I've never eaten anything unclean. I've never done that. I don't do that." But God directs him to do this. And of course, Peter needed direction from God because he would not have done this otherwise. He was being prepared by God to go and travel with some Gentiles to a Gentile household. And that was difficult for him. So God was preparing him and speaking to him about doing things he had never done before, things that he thought were wrong. In the same way, when Paul was trying to move into Bithynia, Paul was traveling from city to city preaching the gospel, and it seemed that the next obvious place to go was Bithynia. But when he tried to go, the Spirit of Jesus did not permit him. He was always doing this, going to the next town, but now God said to him, "Don't do it now, Paul." Let me tell you a story from my own life. Many years ago, when our children were small, myself and my wife had our own children and some other people's children, and we lived in Strandhill in Sligo at the time. The weather was beautiful, so for a few days we were going to the beach, Strandhill Beach, every day. And this one day we packed up our picnic as usual and were about to leave, and I thought, let's not go to that beach today. Let's go to the other beach, to Cullinamore. And I surprised myself really, and I didn't quite know why I was saying that. But I was very firm in the idea we must not go to that beach today. And so we didn't go to that beach today, even though it was a nicer beach than the one I had just suggested. But on that day, at the beach where we usually went, there were rip currents and many people were in the water. Because it was a warm day, they stayed in the water even when the lifeguards blew the whistles and called them out. And then it happened that multiple people got into difficulty at the same time. And as the lifeguards were rescuing some, others were lost their lives. And so by just responding to what was the Spirit's voice to us, we were saved from danger and saved from trauma for the children who would have witnessed, if not participated, in those awful events. So God can speak to us in ways that are out of character, not out of character as much as just out of the ordinary, for our usual routine of life. Sometimes it can be a scripture verse that comes to you in a particular situation. It's a scriptural verse with general application but it has a very particular application for you in that situation. So God calls us to walk by the Spirit. Keep in step with the Spirit. Know what the Spirit is saying and just follow along together. And when we do that, it's freedom. It's not a law. We don't have to worry about breaking God's laws. When the Spirit leads us, we do God's will. It also builds character in us. Walking by the Spirit produces the fruit of the Spirit within us. It brings us in a path of provision and safety because God knows where He's taking us. And it also brings us into a path of fruitfulness because God leads us to do things that are in His will. So may God bless you today as you listen to the voice of the Spirit and keep in step with Him. And join me tomorrow again for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Evangelical Alliance Ireland.